Frogman Friday.
Yeah, boy. What's up, my people? It's that time again. Welcome to the Frogman Friday show.
Presented by Transcend, the best peptide and hormone therapy. They put your health first so you can live more and worry less. Go to transcendcompany.com/Birdman to begin your wellness transformation today.
Today, our badass guest is Bear Handlon, aka Bear. Navy SEAL, 7.5 years of service, final rank lieutenant. He's the founder of Born Primitive, started in 2014 in Virginia Beach. You can catch him on Instagram and LinkedIn, and to take a deeper dive, go check out bornprimitive.com. Brother, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me, man. This one's long overdue.
Long overdue. I've been trying to get you on for a while, but you are growing a massive empire, so I get it totally. You know, I really want to get into Born Primitive because you have grown so much and you do so many things, and I don't fully think everybody understands all that you have going on. But before that, there's one quintessential thing I like to ask special operators to share with the audience purely is, what was your transition out of service like?
I think mine was probably a lot easier than most, just because Born Primitive was like a side hustle from the beginning. So I started Born Primitive 3 months before I went to OCS. So it's always been there. And the second I would leave the day job, I would immediately go to Born Primitive and work, you know what I mean? And just turn that CEO switch on. So really the only difference was there finally came a day where I didn't go to base in the morning and I just went straight to Born Primitive. But other than that, like the battle rhythm was exactly the same. So I had a really easy transition on it, as far as at least the career front.
That's so good to hear.
You know what I mean? Now, obviously there's other stuff. You transition, you're not around the boys and all that stuff. Yeah, of course, I still felt that. But as far as like knowing where the next paycheck was coming from, that was already good to go.
That's legit, man. So to get into that point, did you always know that you were an entrepreneur, or did this something that just come in?
Yeah, I always was, man. I think I started a lawn mowing business. I think I was in 6th grade, just in the neighborhood, walking around, banging on doors, asking people if I can mow the lawn. And by the time I was like a junior year in college, it was like actually a pretty significant little business.
Yeah.
And then I actually launched a business right out of college. We raised about 110 grand in capital and patented a product and kind of threw the Hail Mary to like the business to business play. And for a lot of reasons, it fell through. But then when that failed, I immediately started Born Primitive like shortly thereafter. So I think I've always just had the itch to like have a hustle. Fortunately, this last one seemed to work out all right, but there's definitely a lot of failures along the way. And prior to Born Primitive was even a thing.
Okay. So why did you start Born Primitive?
Total fluke. It really came about because I developed a pair of compression shorts specific to Olympic weightlifters. I was competing in CrossFit at the time, like to get in shape for buds. And I identified this small niche need in that kind of CrossFit Olympic lifting community. I made one prototype. I took an old football girdle from my college football days and cut it up. And my neighbor, who's a seamstress, restitched it into the, how I wanted it. And she brought out the sewing machine while me and Arnie, her husband, drank a gin and tonic on the back deck. And that, I guess, technically is when Born Primitive was born. It was the first prototype. And my intent was just to wear that to the gym, and it was going to be one of one. But then some of the guys at the gym saw it that I trained with and were like, hey, you should market that. You should make it. So I read a couple books on supply chain and, how to develop product, and created some additional prototypes and, got that all going. And then I remember the initial order was 200 units, which at the time seemed like a massive order. And then I went off to officer candidate school, you know what I mean? And that was the beginning, but it quickly evolved into then screen printing t-shirts and hoodies and just really basic stuff. And we would just go to every CrossFit event we could and set up a little booth, a little tent, a little 10 by 10, and just sling compression shorts and t-shirts. And then little by little, we started adding sports bras and leggings and men's training shorts and like more like, cut and sew like performance items. And then from that point forward, it just kind of was off to the races.
So then what is Born Primitive collectively now? Like all the things that you have going on, what would you say for somebody who's never heard of your company? What are you about, and what do you guys do?
Well, I think to oversimplify it, it's apparel for an active lifestyle. And we've expanded into so many categories now. So obviously like workout apparel is still huge for us. That's our foundation. But athleisure apparel, we have an active professional line. We have our campfire line. We have our outdoor line and hunting line. We now have the tactical line, which is huge for us. Footwear. So basically, I took every component of my life where I needed clothing and I was like, let's solve for that. But with like performance and the athlete in mind. So like, our dress shirts, they stretch, our dress pants, they stretch, pretty much everything we have has some component of stretch, because I'm like, I need it to stretch for my big legs. So
Yeah.
everyone else, so that's the kind of the template we've applied. And, the category expansion's been crazy, but has been really good for us because it raises the ceiling on who you can reach.
Yeah. I read something about you looking at different things from college, obviously football, to looking at the SEAL teams and just being the operator to see what works, what doesn't. I've seen a lot of guys go on this path and a lot of them failed at it. What separates you? How did you grow this and expand this? What was your process here?
Well, I think part of it in the early days is like we had to bootstrap everything. So I think that made the growth very controlled and steady. Whereas if we got a giant influx of capital, I think it could have thrown off like us building it the right way with a solid foundation where, I mean, you've probably seen a lot of these particularly direct to consumer brands got just backed with tens of millions of dollars of private equity money, particularly like, in the 2020 range when things just got crazy. But they weren't actually building a sustainable business that like had a strong foundation. And a lot of them were never even making money. They were just chasing top line revenue at all costs. And it really was just this giant facade of a real business, but it wasn't, sustainable. So I didn't even know what a private equity firm was when I was in the team. So like I wouldn't have known how to done it if I wanted to. And obviously being active duty, as like that's a pretty demanding job. So like we were just bootstrapping the whole thing. And little by little, we were, expanding, widening the tent. Now we're to the point where I understand that game enough that we're actually considering bringing on investors. Here we are 11 years later. We've never raised capital. But that's something I'm really proud of, because some of the brands we're competing with, I mean, have literally raised more than 100 million. And now, maybe they're still a little bit bigger than us, but like we're absolutely in the conversation and have a seat at the table. And for 8 of it, I was active duty. So it's like, all right, boys, like I'm at the same table as you, and you now only own 3% of your company. And for 8 years, I was working on a really demanding other job while you guys were working, 60-hour weeks, completely dedicated to your company. So that's a little chip on the shoulder that I have. But we've been very fortunate. We've had a lot go right, and a lot of luck along the way as well. So I have to acknowledge that.
Well, keeping it lean and mean from the get-go and growing as you can is a very important thing. I've seen a lot of businesses do this, where they try to scale too quickly and don't quite understand what they're doing, and they make silly mistakes along the way. And then they find themselves upside down. So that's awesome. What did your company look like when you first started? How many people were working it versus now?
Well, so it was so Mallory and I, who was my wife at the time, we started it at the very beginning. She still, runs the company with me. She's an absolute savage. She's awesome. We have a great relationship. As you know, the team lifestyle can take its toll on the marriage. And when you're doing that, as well as then trying to run a company together, that's not a great recipe for marital success. So ultimately the check engine light came on that one. But so it was just us two, for about the first 4 years. And if you start, even before 2014, it's closer to 5.5 years. But as far as like when we were incorporated as a business, that it was just me and her, a 2-man show for about 4 years. We didn't take a single paycheck. And we bootstrapped the whole thing. And obviously every penny of profit went right back into growing the business, into purchase orders for, the inventory that we needed. And then we brought in our first employee, and to us, it was the wildest thing. We finally had one person on the payroll and moved it out of the house. It had taken over the whole house. Our garage was our fulfillment center. And then I remember getting a 4,000 square foot warehouse and being like, man, this is massive. Like, this is sick. And then within a year, we had to knock out the other wall and get the other sister unit for another 4,000. And from that point on, we've been, unable to get ahead of the growth. I'm building a 52,000 square foot facility right down the road right now. That'll be our new HQ. That'll be done next fall. So good problems to have, but it turned into a 2-man show, and I think we have 110 employees now, and we're sold all over the world now. So quite the operation.
Holy mackerel! Wow. What do you think some of your hardest challenges are with this particular genre of business?
Well, I think, anything in the consumer goods space is difficult. You know, anyone that has to buy inventory, it's difficult. But particularly, like, I almost laugh about it now, is like, apparel is probably the dumbest industry to go into because there's virtually no barrier to entry and it's so crowded. You know what I mean? Like, anyone could, start an activewear brand tomorrow with very little experience and, probably produce a product that's close to the quality. You know, it would take time to really refine it and be like really nice, but you could have a decent pair of leggings in 6 months. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
With reading a couple books, like I did. So I think that's the biggest challenge, is how do you really differentiate yourself in an extremely crowded space? How do you convince someone to come purchase your product when there's a million other similar products? And to me, like, the actual defendable thing that you have is your brand. It's not actually the product. The product, development is, I would consider, kind of like an implied task. Like, yeah, you better have good product, but it can't just be that. What are you doing? What is your actual value proposition to the customer beyond just a good product? And to me, that's where brand comes into play. And that's where I think the way we've built it and been unapologetically American, proud of our country, what it stands for. We really reject kind of the victim mentality that I think has infected our society. We've leveraged the platform to give back, and we've donated millions of dollars to charities, particularly veterans and first responder charities. And, last year we paid off $11 million in veteran medical bills. So we've tried to, like, do more than just make apparel. And that's why people go, hell yeah. Like, I'm proud to wear that logo because I know what they stand for. And what the brand ethos are. And that wasn't really any fancy, marketing plan. That was Mallory and I's personal values. So we were like, let's just, like, that's what the brand's going to be about, because that's what we're about. I also think the fact that, I was active duty helped validate that, hey, these are our real ethos that we live personally. This isn't just some punchline that we created in a boardroom, with, men from New York City wearing suits, you know what I mean? That you see. So I think that has been our real secret sauce. And that's why I always stress that to the team. It's like, it has to be more than apparel, because anyone can go make a hunting pant tomorrow. The moat around our castle is brand all day long. Right. And as the stakes get higher, we need to make sure we focus on that. Otherwise someone's just going to knock us off tomorrow. So we really focus on that, and that's the stuff I enjoy. That's the fun shit. But it's always something you have to stay on top of and always be thinking about.
Well, I'll tell you what, your customer service is awesome, right? We have dealt together through our nonprofit. We bring these group of Black Ops special operators in every year to teach a bunch of guys that are high net worth individuals how to protect themselves, because these are the guys that are most vulnerable, right? People who are super wealthy and they don't know how to find their medical kit, what's in it, how to use it, trauma triage. They don't know how to shoot a gun. They don't know how to shoot a gun well. They don't know how to actually do hand-to-hand. They're just a walking time bomb. And so we're like, all right, let's infuse you with the things you need. And so when bringing in all our instructors that are Spec Ops guys, like, we got to get gear for them so we look somewhat similar. And of course, Born Primitive was the deal. So we're like calling you. It's like, hey, we got to get some gear. And you put us in touch with your gal that works in Michigan, who was right on top of it, squared us away. And I'm like, oh, she's from Michigan. That's cool. That's where I'm from. I'm like, it's awesome. But it was so fast and easy where I was like, Jesus, that's when you know you have a successful company, when people believe in your ethos and your mantra and what your brand is to where they want to work for it. And people just do their job. And that was really impressive. And then, of course, I get the gear. I make the mistake, though, of saying, I think that we're going to go with the brown camis, right? What are they called? What color? The
Coyote brown.
Coyote brown. So I love them, and they look so good with gear on. But one of my boys who's still who comes in, he puts them on in the hotel room, and he's like, check it out, dude. And I was like, they look so good with gear. And he goes, dude, they feel amazing. Like, these are awesome. And then he comes and grabs a box and he starts walking around. He's like, I'm a UPS guy. And so that became the running theme, is anytime we took the gear off, we were UPS instructors, but then we put them back on and it looks so good. But everybody from that point on, like, hey, we going Born Primitive again. And so it's spread, and you know the deal. If you get the special operations community interested in your product, you got a good product for the military. Everybody else goes after it. And the flexibility, the durability, the lightweightness to it, the fact that it looks good too, because you got to look good in gear, right? So all these things were just top notch and quite really affordable, considering stuff that's out there that is just, it's too much. You can only buy one set and you have to wear that for a couple of years, right? So Anyway, I love that. I just wanted to throw you that little deal right there. Let everybody knowing and listening, like, hey, the customer service base is shit hot, and the ethos is really there. The people that I've worked with at Born Primitive are, I mean, I've worked with a lot of your people too. I've worked with Community First Project that you guys work a lot with. They're doing great stuff, and everybody that I've dealt with who's dealt with Born Primitive has just been awesome people. So you have really built something from just your house, your garage, to this brand today. I couldn't be more proud to know you and know what you're doing, man. It's awesome. Let me ask you a question about business. What do you find that some of your biggest struggles are today? Like, what are your hardest choke points here?
Well, I think there's different challenges in different phases of the business. And I think that's the hardest part is as soon as you have like one aspect of it mastered, there's a whole new slew of problem sets that come in when you're at a bigger size, right? So the learning curve just, it never ends. And we're to the point now where we have a bit of a target on our back. So like, the current list of challenges that I'm facing right now is now you actually have to look at risk to the organization, like way more than you ever have. So like my insurance policies, like we have this super robust insurance policy where we have like cyber and we have this and that, because once there's a target on your back, people will come after you. Right. You'll have hackers trying to get into your system. So we had to like revamp our whole IT security. And obviously before, like we don't have IT security, like, you know what I mean? We've had 3 frivolous lawsuits already filed this year against us. Very par for the course at our size. But when you're new to that, you get super frustrated, and then you realize, okay, this is just cost of doing business, and people are opportunistic to rig, try to take advantage of the system and to play the victim card and this and that. So, I think at our level, cash flow management is huge, because the purchase orders are pretty massive now. So making sure you get those right, tax planning. And again, this is not the sexy stuff. But we pay our taxes quarterly, so you have to account for that. That's large sums of money you have to make sure are set aside. Then just personnel things, right? Making sure you have an org chart that is set up in a way that's scalable, and you keep like the good systems in place without creating too much bureaucracy. That's the thing I hate about big companies. It's like there's so much bureaucracy. There's 5 different approvals that need to happen to get anything done. We really try to decentralize command. We give out intent and can maybe establish left and right limits, but we really let people operate within those parameters. But at the same time, you still need systems in place. You know what I mean? So it's that balance. And as you grow, that the need for that just evolves. So I think that, just to zoom out, the hardest thing is just adapting to the growing business as the problem sets change. And you've never truly mastered it, because as soon as you think we've accounted for all this, well, now your revenue has now increased by 40% into the next year. And you're like, okay, well, now we have this, and this that we have to think about. So, but it's fun. It keeps you sharp. That's why I'm interested in the potential private equity angle, is bringing in guys that have, overseen businesses that are, 3 or 4 rungs up the ladder than where we are now, and kind of know, okay, when you hit this revenue threshold, here's what you need to start thinking about. All right, when you hit this, here's a new slew of problems you need to account for. So almost like, we would have built-in mentors that could, help us walk that path. Of course, choosing the right partner is critical in that, because that can also go the other direction, where you make a deal with the devil and you have immediate buyer's remorse, which I've talked to plenty of founders who have done that to create some personal liquidity for themselves and immediately regretted it. So that's something obviously we'll navigate very carefully, but in a perfect world, you bring some guys into the mix that can give you cash and capital, but also be mentors and really good advisors to the next phases of the business.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I mean, obviously starting this and just imagining, like, I can't believe that we're selling our first order and we get 200 units out the door. And now here you are building a 50,000+ square foot headquarters and warehouse. Where do you want to take Born Primitive? Like, what is your ultimate goal, or do you have that yet? Or is it a seasonal thing?
Well, my ideas are kind of wild, man.
Good.
I would like to, I want to sell $1 billion in apparel. Okay. I like measurable goals. I would like the enterprise value of the business to get to 500 million. That would be the kind of the financial measurable, kind of output goal that, if there's a scoreboard, like you got to measure it somehow. A not so measurable goal would be just, the continued impact we can have through our platform. The charitable component has been huge for us. Honestly, it's super fulfilling. Like in a way, it's self-serving because it brings me a lot of joy and fulfillment. But the amount of lives we've been able to change, particularly through like the medical bill thing we were doing last year and what we're doing this year, really fires me up and gives me, really sense of satisfaction that, hey, we're not just using this business to employ all kinds of people and give them and their family benefits, and we're making money of it from it, of course, but like we're able to then go impact people that we're never going to meet. Is pretty awesome. So I'm excited to see where that can go. I was actually just in Washington, D.C. yesterday, meeting with a bunch of senators and congressmen in the VA in regards to the medical bill thing that we've now have visibility into because of what we've been doing. So like, I want to take this beyond just selling apparel and see if we can be a part of, change, particularly in the veteran and first responder communities. And I don't know what that's going to look like, but I'm fired up about it. And the thing is, man, it's like what I was doing yesterday is like normal people can't get those meetings, right? I'm able to get those meetings, and I'm being brutally honest here. The Trident opens doors for you. I'm just going to say it, right? When you walk in and you're introduced to a senator and say, hey, this is Bear Handlon. He's a Navy SEAL and he has this business and they're doing all this stuff for veterans. That's the reason I got the meeting. And I'm not naive to, otherwise, if you take that first part out of it, they're way less interested, right? So I'm trying to use that prior service and what you and I both did to open up doors, but to be a part of some positive change. And so far it's looking really good. So, I guess the bigger vision is when the dust settles on all of this and we can look back and what was the actual impact beyond just a financial goal that a business strives for.
Well, there's other things that get you in the door, bro. First of all, you're humongous. So people are terrified to say no to you. And then you top Navy SEAL, football player, massive dude. Dare I say good looking. And when you walk in the room, people are like, that's the Navy SEAL. Now see, when I walk in the room, people are like, that must be the kid brother of the fucking SEAL. And I'm like, hey, whoa. So anyway, it's just the genes on the cards I was dealt. What, I was trying to think about this. I really want to tap into this charity stuff some more. I know that I want to save some flavor for the end, but why did you get into this giving specifically to help veterans pay off their medical bills? What was that about?
Well, like I said, from the beginning, we always tried to like do some good and make some charitable donations. In the garage days, of course, like the amount of decimals on the check was a whole lot less. Yeah. But as we grew it, we'd look at the P&L and say, okay, what can we budget for charitable impact? And it was always a part of the plan. And it was super easy to align with like veteran and first responder causes because that was just close to our hearts and to the brand. But last year, so typically we do something big around every Veterans Day. And last year I was thinking, all right, instead of donating to a charity like we normally do and pledging a bunch of profits, like what if we did something a little bit more creative? So I got with a company called Forgive Co. and we came up with the idea of paying off veteran medical bills. They help pay off all kinds of debt for people, but I was like, hey, I want it to be specific to veterans. And like, is there a way to filter out to only include medical bills? And they were like, hey, let me get back to you. And they figured out, yes, we can do this. And why that was intriguing to me is like, as like no one deliberately incurs medical debt, right? It's as a result of an unforeseen event. You could get some random illness. You could get someone runs a red light driving to work one day and you get T-boned and all of a sudden you have $50,000 in bills that you can't afford. Totally can change your life overnight. So I was intrigued by that idea. So I said, all right, let's give this a go. Let's pledge a bunch of our profits for 4 days. So we did it for a 96-hour window ending on Veterans Day last year, November 11th, with the goal of trying to pay off $5 million worth in medical bills. And we got a bunch of support. I got to go on Fox News. We got a bunch of people posting about it and sharing the story. And, when the dust settled, we ended up paying off $11 million in total, which was over 5,800 veterans were debt-free. I got to personally call quite a few of them, and just to honestly hear their stories, man, was like, kind of heartbreaking, but also fired me up to say, okay, how do we, like, now I have skin in the game because now I'm emotionally invested in this. So while it was a huge success, I immediately, once we were able to debrief the campaign, I was like, all right, we need to make this bigger because I'm really fired up. And I saw the impact. However, we just scraped the surface. Like, we have to cast a wider net next year. So that's when I hit up, looking at across different brands that are like-minded, that have a history of giving back. Black Rifle Coffee was the first one I thought of. So I called them up and said, hey, we just did this. Here's the 60-second pitch on it, but you should join us and let's try to more than double the number next year. And they were like, hell yeah, we're in. So, we're going to rinse and repeat, do the same thing this year. It'll be from November 7th through the 11th. So it'll end at midnight on Veterans Day. And we're going to try to get to 25 million in total between the two brands. We'll pledge all profits from both websites for that 5-day period. And then, at the policy level, that's why I was up in DC, because we can't just keep throwing cash at the problem, because the debt just gets even bigger. You know what I mean? So even if we do 25 million, like, we're barely scraping the surface. So what can we do in addition to paying the bills off of getting to the root of the problem and plugging the wound? And then the combos I had yesterday were super productive. And the VA was very open to working with us because what I told them is, hey, we have a case study of 5,800 people from last year, and we'll have probably another 15,000 this year. Why don't we give you this case study and this giant data set, and let's use it to identify areas where the VA was insufficient in covering these veterans? Because that's what I learned through talking with a lot of these people is like, man, they just got screwed. You know what I mean? Then they have no means of appealing it. And all of a sudden their wages are getting garnished. The credit's below 600 now. They're getting, phone calls and scary letters. And you imagine the burden some of these people are already carrying, especially depending on their financial situation already. And then you slap that on there and the wage garnishment and all the things that come with it. It can really mess with a lot of people's lives and add to stress. And as we know, the veteran suicide rate continues to get worse despite all the stuff we're throwing at it and all the resources. So this was just something unique that I thought, hey, it's a feel good thing that everyone can agree on. It's helping people from all walks of life, man.
That's amazing. I love hearing this because it's such a different take on charity, right? You hear all about the suicide's a big one right now. And there's a lot of different charities popping up from the mental health side, psychedelics, all these different things that are coming out the wind. And then, I've been in the charity space for close to 15 years now and dealing with different injuries, amputations, burns, just anything you can think of, seen a lot of different stuff. This is new. This is different. This is not something that people talk about. It's the medical expenses that the service members incur that they can't pay off, and it just sets them backwards. So when you have something fresh like that, people get excited because there's too many damn charities out there now. They're all just taking money away from other charities that are doing it right. It's a lot of fraudulent shit going on. And so to be able to singularly focus on a really cool thing that is really exciting and new for somebody like me who's been in this space for a long time and understands it quite well, it's really cool. So, we'll encourage other charities to get behind you to push that word out, because we do have a big network of charities. And there's nothing that charities should work together. So let's see how many charities we can actually get together to support your mission in this November to get more funding going to help pay off these medical expenses. That's a legit deal. I mean, wow, man, like thinking about building this business and how much good you can do. Let's roll it all the way back to your childhood. Like, what made you become a servant?
I don't know, man. I've always been, I've always, at least, I don't know if I'm considering myself a leader, but I've always wanted to lead. If it was like we're picking teams at recess, I was the captain, and same thing in high school, and just running my own businesses and all of that. Even choosing to be an officer in the teams, which is a whole nother story, because I should have definitely went enlisted. I thought I was going to be the leader. It's like, no, I got to be an officer. So I think that leading has always been at the forefront, and I think that kind of naturally lent to, all right, how do you lead from the front and leverage what you're doing to help other people? But as like the business got bigger, it just gives us more leeway in what we can do, man. And that's what is really exciting for me, because like, again, it gives me incredible fulfillment. So like I said, in a way it's self-serving, because it makes me happy when I'm able to do that. It makes me happy when I'm able to call a single mother of 2 that got T-bone driving to work, that her life was devastated, that, hey, your bill's been taken care of, and you just get silence on the other end, and then you hear her sobbing, right? Like, that's crazy. I just flew out to Denver, and one of the recipients on the list was a Gold Star spouse. Her husband was an infantry guy in the Army and was killed, roadside bomb. He was up in the turret. She was an Army vet herself. and they have 2 kids. And after her service concluded, she got in a really bad wreck out in Colorado after a big snowstorm, and I think she was airlifted. She was banged up for a couple of weeks in the hospital, got like 18 plates put in her face, completely had it reconstructed. Well, she walks out of the hospital and gets a bill for $341,000. That's a bill she'll never be able to pay in 3 lifetimes, right? So I was able to fly out with Matt Best from Black Rifle Coffee and hand deliver her the debt payoff letter. And of course, the reaction that followed is what you would expect. So to me, like, that's the shit that fires me up, because like I now get to feel the fulfillment and satisfaction of, okay, you were a part of creating this impact. You know what I mean? And it's really as a result of our customers coming out and supporting it. But, you know, we facilitated, right? So I guess I'm just motivated by, you know, seeing how far we can take it and hopefully setting an example for other companies. I hope they see it and say, hey, we need to do more of this, because they're actually now gaining ground on us. Like, I see it almost as like an asymmetric advantage. These big corporations don't think like we think. We're way more agile. We're way more creative. We have no constraints. You know, half the time I'm walking around the office barefoot wearing jean shorts, right? So like it's a different vibe, but it gives us, I think, an asymmetric advantage, because we don't have a board we answer to. We don't have to run this through some filter and check all these corporate boxes. You know, we're gonna go A to B really fast, and we're not gonna think with any constraints. And this allows us to come up with ideas like this. You know, so you know, I'm curious to see how far we can take it, and if we can encourage other brands, mainly the big corporations, to say, hey, they're actually kind of setting the example of what this should look like, and that leads to more impact from the companies that have way more resources than we do. Then, you know, maybe we call that a win. But particularly like the brands that are in the tactical space, for example, that have been printing millions and millions of dollars since the GWAT started. Yeah, I hate to say it, man, and I'm not going to call them by names, but they haven't done absolute shit for the veteran community, right? They take some guys out, you know, once a year in SHOT Show and get them drunk and take them to a party, and that's about the extent of the give back they give to our community. Yet they're happy to take the SOCOM contract. They're happy to do this, happy to do that. It's like, hey, you guys just sold 2 million pairs of pants in the GWAT, and, you know, you guys all have houses in Malibu. Must be nice, but what are you actually doing for your end customer? You know, you're not doing anything. And, you know, you get a few beers in me, I'll talk more about that. But part of this is a direct rejection of those companies that pretend to be endemic to our community and are one of us, and when a lot of them never served in the first place and are not doing anything from a financial front or, you know, with their own efforts to help out the community in any way whatsoever.
That's legit, dude. Oh my gosh. Whew. You are on top of the ball. That bruise, I can tell that nitro cold brew is kicking.
There you go. I told you.
I can see the fire coming out.
I told you, stand by. At the beginning, I was calm and collected, and now you got me fired up.
Eyes squinted. Yeah. I could start to see like this just darkness come in there. That's pretty awesome.
It's too bad there's not a little bourbon in here. It could have been even better.
That's so great, man. Well, you had this opportunity to join any military, any branch, any special operations community or not. Why the Navy SEALs?
I'm probably the same reason as any of us, man. You know, 9/11 happened. I was in 8th grade, and that was the moment I knew, you know, we got sent home from school that day. I was like, I'm joining the service. And then I learned about this mysterious like SEAL team thing, and I was told it was the hardest training and it was the baddest dude. So, you know, as an 8th grade boy, like, that sounds pretty good to me, you know? Like, so, yeah. You know, but I really was drawn to the challenge. I like the idea that, hey, 80% of the guys aren't going to make it. And that was absolutely validated in my experiences. I'm sure it was for you. Yeah. You know, just proud to, you know, I think the most fulfilling thing for me is looking back on it. It was just like what that Trident stood for, and just the commitment to the standard that, you got to be a part of, that culture that was set. I think there's so much to be learned from that mentality in any organization. As the guys that were senior to you were the gatekeepers to the standard, and we were ruthless in maintaining that. Right. And obviously as a new guy, you're still cutting your teeth, but once you get past that, okay, now you're part of the gatekeepers to maintain the next group of guys coming in. And I just love that, man. And I, you know, in the civilian world, you got to filter it a little. because I've tried to apply that maybe more than I should here at Born Primitive. And I realized like, all right, I had to course correct a little after the first couple of years. Like, you know, my Mallory, the co-founder, would always be like, hey, this isn't a freaking SEAL platoon. You're expecting more of these people. It's not realistic. They're not a bunch of Navy SEALs. And I would say, no, that's bullshit. The standard is the standard. They can conform to the standard or they can get the F out. And it's not an unrealistic standard. I'm asking them to be exceptional, but that should be the baseline. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And you know, it evolved a little bit, and I think we're in a really good place now. I mean, we have so many talented people here and people with a great attitude. But yeah, I think the initial draw was just the statistic. I was like, oh, really? 80%? Well, we'll see about that.
Yeah.
And I squeaked through the cracks. I think I used every live I had. If I was a cat, I used 8 of the 9 lives to get through training. Like I had to like reshoot the pistol qual, reshoot rifle, OC8 went to 4th attempt, you know, like I used every silver bullet I could, man. But when the dust settled, somehow I was still standing. That's
legit, dude. You know, it's funny. The buds thing that you said, you know, just the attrition rate. When I read about it, was in a Reader's Digest magazine. I was in junior year of high school, I think. And this was when 9/11 happened. I was a junior. And I remember it was like a 6-page article. And it was like the first book I ever read cover to cover. You know, I was like, yeah, 7 pages down, I'm the man, right? But it was just so intense. And it was like this Marine who got out who went to be a SEAL. And so I was like, that tells me everything I need to know. Like this guy was a Marine, and you know, Marines, we grew up learning about the Army and the Marine Corps, World War II and that. So I'm like, these guys are awesome. So if this guy wants to go challenge himself there, that means there's something special here. I'm all in on that. That sounds awesome. But what was cool is you show up to Buds, and the guys who make it have fun in Buds. We really do, because it's different every day. There's a lot of shit talking. There's a lot of goofy stuff around the sides and breaks, the little tiny breaks that we have. And just everybody's a mess, but just where you find that camaraderie through the chaos. But then you go and you graduate and you find you're like, holy shit, I'm actually here now. And then you see the teams and you're like, whoa, this is so, there's none of that in the book. There was none of that. So I'm like, oh, this is even better. This just keeps getting better. You're telling me that all you got to do is like make it through training and you get a 6-pack and a chest. And I was like, I'm in. Wasn't that guy in high school? I'm doing that. So I'm with you on that. So did you, when starting Born Primitive, and you said you were going through some of those fatal funnels, talking about being a commando and trying to run it like the SEAL teams, were you doing peer evals with your new people coming in?
So I wanted to do bottom 5, which, I mean, you'll crack up. I mean, imagine doing a bottom 5. So for anyone listening, like, you know, when you're going through SEAL training, like you do peer evals, which can be ruthless. And then you have to rank the bottom 5 guys in the class. So like, as the instructors are sifting through it, if they see like the same guy listed by everyone, well, guess what? They're going to do their thing to get that guy out, because he doesn't belong there, and that's for good reason. Like the system, it works, right? So I remember I brought that up with Mal. I was like, well, we should maybe do bottom 3, right? And she's like, absolutely not. Like, what? And I'm like, no, it's this thing we did in Buds. It's actually really helpful, because then we can read them all, and then if we see who the bottom 3 are, then we like get them out of here. Yep. And I realized, man, I really got to rewire how I look at this thing. But I still will maintain the position. It would have been super insightful, but I don't think it probably would have created the best work atmosphere if people knew like they're being listed in the bottom 3 by their peers, where it is in Buds. Obviously it's like Lord of the Flies. It's just, and it goes quick. I mean, you know, we went from like, I don't know, 215 to 19 by the end of Hell Week. So we were like, you know, at that point, you don't really need to worry about that anymore. But yeah, it was definitely an adjustment, man, you know, kind of taking what you learn in the teams, because obviously there's so many good leadership lessons and just the kind of the cultural things that were instilled in us. And then applying that, you know, in a civilian capacity, I think it gives us a massive advantage from a leadership perspective. But obviously, I think you got to sand the edges and refine it just a little to be a little bit more palatable for like the average civilian. And I think that's fair. I don't necessarily expect people to be bear crawling across the kitchen because the coffee wasn't prepped appropriately. Although that would be sweet.
That'd be sweet. We start the comics like in phase 2.
Yeah,
start the comics.
That's right.
That's the good stuff.
We did it in first phase as well.
Really?
And that was, man, you talk about walking on eggshells, because we had some really good comics, and we would make fun of like one instructor And all the other instructors loved it because like we were just ruthless, but like the one instructor can still MF you pretty good. You know what I mean? So it's like the other instructors were demanding a good comic, but we're like, we don't want to hit the surf at 4 a.m. Like this is not cool. So yeah, that's the good stuff, man. Those are the good memories,
man. And why the East Coast?
So, Mal and I were married at the time, and I kind of gave her the choice. We're originally from Indiana, so we thought that East Coast was a little bit more like similar to the Indiana lifestyle. It's still obviously East Coast, but Cali to Indiana versus, Virginia Beach to Indiana is a much different experience. So I kind of conceded on that one. I think I would have preferred West Coast, at least at the time. But I love Virginia Beach, man. And obviously it was around a great group of dudes, and I'm still living here. But that was ultimately the wife at the time. She kind of had the veto rights on that one.
For sure. Well, you could actually buy a house in Virginia Beach where you can't buy anything but a shanty in Cali.
That's right.
Yeah, so definitely win there. How long into being a SEAL did you know that you fucked up and when you became an officer versus not going enlisted?
Probably once I got to my platoon. You know what I mean? Because I think I just got bad advice. And obviously, like, I don't necessarily regret the decision. Like I'm still proud to be, have been a commissioned officer in the Navy and just like all that stuff. But as a football player, I was equating it like using a football analogy. Like, all right, who's the middle linebacker of the platoon? Right. So like, on defense, it's usually a middle linebacker, or maybe the strong safety is like making all the calls. So if a guy runs in motion and you got to roll the coverage, whatever, you're calling it out so all the boys know what we're doing for that play. And that had always been, me in some capacity. So I was like, my football brain went to that, and I thought that would be the platoon commander, right? When, as you know, it's the platoon chief is doing that job, right? And even, then the LPOs are running. It is so I didn't understand it appropriately. And had I known, if someone had broken it down and given me a football analogy, that, hey man, the platoon commander is more like the defensive coordinator on the sideline, and your platoon chief is the middle linebacker, I've been like, oh, well, I want to be the platoon chief then. So, hindsight's 2020. I was lucky though for my first platoon that like my platoon chief basically said, hey, I want you to be an E5 because you need to learn the craft. If you're going to lead these, and I love that because that's what I would prefer to do. So, I got to carry the 48 and carry a torch or a quickie saw or whatever else we were doing, and just be a meat for most of the time. Now I was still doing like the travel claims and all the BS officer stuff that the guys were making me do. So I still got my officer fill, but when it was time to actually do the job, I was in more of an enlisted role anyway. So I got lucky. Some of the other JOs didn't have that experience. They were like being an RTO for their platoon commander and doing all the bitch work. Which was not my experience. So I got lucky there. But then obviously seeing the guys that are, they're going to sniper school and breacher school and they're doing all the things. I was like, well, I signed up to do the job. And, unless you get really lucky as an officer, as like, yes, you're operational, but your shelf life is way, way quicker. And, if you're actually doing a clearance, in the house, like, you're going to probably get pulled back, especially if you're the platoon commander. Like you're worrying about the up and out anyway. So your primary becomes your radios, not necessarily your rifle, and that kind of sucks.
Yeah, man. I remember watching one of our JOs. We were doing a JTAC and a hit at the same time, and he was calling in, and we're doing like this IAD, there's some immediate action drill. We're all online, and we're shooting at this target, and this is all training, so this is not like badass shit. It's just training. But we're shooting, and I'm just like, I lift the 48 up to go change or switch it out, change it out. And I look back at him, and he's just sitting up on this berm behind me, and he's like this, as he's got a camera, like the talkie right here, and he's just like, "Fuck you." And I'm like, "You signed up for that shit." So,
sounds about right, man.
But that's a beautiful thing that he said to you, because I was always so concerned with this as a leader in the teams. Is that when you get a new officer in, they're in charge of the platoon chief. They have more rank than the chief, and they can tell the chief what to do. They have no understanding of how the community works or how being a SEAL operator is. And so they're at a disadvantage right out of the gate. And so really to be able to afford you that opportunity to get into that hot seat and be an operator and learn these things and work with the boys like that, that's a spectacular thing, because they don't do that. They didn't do a lot of that when I was there.
Yeah, and I think, without going on a tangent, like the way officers are developed is done completely wrong. Because like if I were running the show, and again, like this is a big if, but like I would have an officer require him to do 2 platoons before anything, and you're just, hey, you're an E5 shooter and you need to learn the craft, and maybe that second platoon you start introducing them to more GFC type stuff. But for some of these guys, like the experience could have been, all right, you do a platoon, you're not really operational because maybe your platoon commander wanted you to be more of a OIC type role, so you're not really learning the craft. Then you go to a diversity tour at another command that might not even be related to your job at all. And then you're going to come back and now all of a sudden you're a platoon commander and you're expected to lead. Well, if that guy is not in a position to appropriately lead and be like tactically proficient, like in a way that's not his fault, because like it's look at what you've given him. Now he of course should be seeking out his own professional development and doing the rock drills. Like there's a way you can seek out mentorship and learn like on the side, but not in your daily programming that's of the job. So I think it's a complete failure. And it's like, okay, why does some guy need to go be an admiral's aide? Is he really going to learn a lot about, like, let's worry about the near-term goal of being like a proficient platoon commander first, and then he can go learn how to like cut a fancy con op for the boss. You know what I mean? Like it's to me, it's completely asinine how they run it. And I think it just sets guys up for failure. And then I think that's why it leads to some platoon commanders that just weren't like really proficient. And it's like, well, guys, look at his career path so far. Like, what do you expect? You know what I mean? Yeah. Would you take a 2 platooner and make him the platoon chief and be like, oh, wow, this guy sucks. And his tactical picture is terrible. It's like, yeah, what do you expect? He's done 1 platoon. right. But I don't think the officers don't get that leeway, because it's like, if you can't hack it, like there's not like we understand this is new to you. It's just like, all right, you're out. So,
well, see, God put me in this position where I had to go enlist because I sucked in school. Like I just didn't care, didn't turn shit in. And so I'm like, you're the only way you're going to survive in life is to enlist in the military. I'm like, cool, let's do that. So very fortunate. Now seeking education afterwards, that's even more painful.
There you go. Yeah.
So
you did it right though, man. You did.
It was fun. Yeah. I mean, we all got ourselves a taste to, a lot of people have so many different views now on like why we went overseas and what we did. And I'm like, who the fuck cares? Like at the end of the day, we went over there to keep it over there and not bring any more of that shit here. And that's it. And enemies, truly, and bad people. That's it. It's as simple as that. And so, and through that process, I got to meet the most humble, unique, some arrogant, but raddest dudes on the earth that I could never measure up to. But that's what made me better every day. So I was always trying to compete with them and get better. And still to this day, all of my homies, I stalked them. Some of them are still they're in 30 years now. And they're like, still trying to measure up to these guys. I'm like, I'll never get there, but I'm going to still try. And every now and then we'll do like a shooting drill together. When I see him, we hang out and I'll beat him and I'll be like, see, I knew I'd get there. And like, that's one time, homie. All right, we'll get back to this. I'm like, all right, cool.
There we go. Love it.
So let's roll back into Born Primitive as we close this out. So like, where do you need the most help right now? Like for viewers listening, some are in the business space at very high levels, some are consumers. What are, let's say, your top 3 things you need help with or you could use right now?
Well, I think the near-term goal here is this Veterans Day campaign. So depending on when this airs, it'll run from the 7th to the 11th. So we're going to pledge all profits until we get to that $25 million debt payoff goal. So if you need some new gear, we got workout gear. We got gear for literally any lifestyle that I've already mentioned. Come out, support the cause. And Black Rifle Coffee is going to match the pledge as well on their end through their website. So if you need some coffee, better known brand, hit them up too. If there are people, particularly high net worth individuals that want to do a private donation towards this, hit me up. We've had quite a few people hear of this and say, hey, I want to contribute. Like, just tell me where to send a check to. Which obviously is awesome. I mean, that's going directly to the veterans. So just shoot me an email. It's just bear.handlon@bornprimitive.com. Absolutely can get you in the mix, and it's all certified. Everyone gets like a certified 501c3 letter and the whole deal. So good to go there. And then if there's anyone listening that would potentially want to invest in, I'm talking professional investors, in what we're doing. We're 11 years running. We've been profitable every single year. We're finally looking to take some chips off the table. So if you want to get in the mix, we have an investment bank representing us right now. We'll probably start a process in the next couple months. shoot us an email. We'll add you to the roster and you can throw your name in the hat. But looking to find someone that's not going to dilute what we're doing. And the values of Born Primitive will remain intact despite who we partner with. So make that very clear. I'm not going to be having some guy from New York telling me how to run my company, and that we have to dilute the personality and values of our company. And that the day that happens is the day I'm not working here. So I'd say that's it right now, man. But I appreciate you having me on and talking through some of this, and hopefully this Veterans Day thing can turn into something even bigger, particularly with the stuff going on in DC. I'm going to get up there and again in a couple of weeks, and with those follow-on conversations, and hopefully we can be part of a solution to a really big problem that's plaguing a lot of veterans, and I think can be a major contributing factor to a lot of the suicide we're seeing. I think it's just one component. Obviously, if you got debt collectors calling you and your wages are getting garnished and you're circling the drain already in some other areas of your life, like that might expedite ultimately that decision to take your own life. So my hope is that maybe those numbers will start going down too, and this could play a very small part in that overall effort.
It's legit, man. Final thought: who is your hero and why?
Oh man, well, I might have answered this a little different a couple of years ago, but I've gotten much stronger in my faith the last few years. On the personal side, I've gone through some rough stuff, and I'm stronger for it now. But I would have to say Jesus Christ, man. That was the first thought. Realizing what He did for us, the sacrifice for our sins and what that meant. There's only been one perfect human ever, and it was Jesus. So that's a big part of my life now, and I'm really glad. I've always been Christian, but it was kind of like I was a Christian when I needed to be. If I was going through rough times, I would pray, hey, we're about to do this crazy VBSS, thing. All right. Yeah. Okay. Hey, I don't want to fall on this 50-foot climb. Like it's, it was convenient. Yeah. Pray when it's convenient. And then I realized that was kind of some surface level faith, and I needed to go a lot deeper. And it was mainly just because I needed an outlet, and I didn't want to turn to, drinking or drugs or anything like that. So I started going to church every day or every Sunday, sitting in front, and little by little, man, that belief and grew, and now it's a huge foundation for everything that I do. Because I think you can probably relate to this. Like as type A individuals, it's hard to release control. We have to hold on so tight and control all the variables, and try to eliminate all the little friction areas of our life and be efficient and this and that. And that's good for I think accomplishing things in your life and having a strong career and all these other things. But it's not good for being able to be at ease with the overall plan. Because in the end of the day, none of this shit is really that important. It zooms way out further than this. So I've worked on, really releasing that, hey, there's a bigger plan here. We'll release the wheel, let the big man take it. Now that doesn't mean you're all willy-nilly about everything, but at the same time, chill out a little bit, take the pressure off yourself, and accept the bigger plan that's playing out right in front of you.
That's the best statement you could say, man, because when I started this show over probably 4 years ago, legitimately had no intention of starting a podcast, but ultimately it's just for the brotherhood, right? Like helping guys like you who are entrepreneurs get out there to people that we all know, just help you springboard out of service, as fast as you can. This is the worst thing in the world for somebody who's, 40 years old, who's got multiple combat deployments, and they get out and they go work for somebody who's 22 years old, fresh out of school, and they just know a couple more steps in the job day to day. And you're like, dude, there's a certain degree that we have, or decree of acting we have to work together on, and do not talk down to me. I will crush your skull. It's, but when I started this show, I was asking guys this question: who's your hero and why? Because I want to know what makes people tick. I want to know what drives Bear Handlon. I want to know what drives everybody. And for 3 years, it was a father, a mother, a grandfather, some teammate that passed. And this year it has been like 90% Christ. It is amazing, the swarm that is going through the brotherhood that is coming to Jesus, and it makes me so happy. Get the chills.
Love it,
Jesus.
Man. I love that.
Yes.
I love that.
So,
Yeah,
good,
I think it's making a comeback, man. I really do. I see it. I mean, when I go to church on Sunday, there's freaking team guys everywhere. I think it's the safest church on the planet, man, because I'm seeing a lot of imprints on the old appendix. I'm like, if someone were to rush the pastor right now, I mean, you talk about overlapping fields of fire, man. Like it would be, we'd all be claiming that we hit the guy when there's shell casings everywhere. But I love it, man. Yeah, seeing guys show up with their families and they're getting after it during the week, but on Sundays it's a time to reflect and put it all in perspective.
Yeah, man. Count the blessings we have. Well, there you have it, guys. Born Primitive, Bear Handlon. Go check him out, bornprimitive.com. We will be running the November, what's the dates exactly?
The 7th through the 11th. Yeah.
So November 7th through the 11th, we're going to push it up on our site on the Frogman Friday and on our charity Bird's Eye View project to make sure that you can also follow that to see what they're doing and then invest in them, donate to them. We're going to help you push this out, brother. And we're going to send a lot of people your way, man.
Love it.
Super grateful for you spending the time here and just for all your accomplishments, but better for, I follow your Instagram. I don't follow many people, even though I have a lot of followers that I follow. I don't really follow a bunch of people. I don't have time to just scroll. But I watch you and to see the posts and how you're a daddy, and it's so important, and that's so cool, man. It's like you could use it just purely to push your company and blast it out or talk about seal shit, and you are truly living the life of being a daddy and a husband, and that's a super cool thing. And so yes, you're a real deal, man. And
yeah.
I'm glad to have you on.
Well, thanks, man. Yeah, the dad role is the number one role. I'm actually not a married man, but no, yeah. Hopefully,
Sweet, better.
I hope I am someday. But yeah, that's the most important role, and that's what drives me in a lot of this is setting a good example. She's only 4.5 right now, so she has no idea what I'm up to. But eventually, hopefully, maybe she'll learn what a seal is, and maybe get to see what we're doing here at Born Primitive, and yeah, we'll see, man.
Dude, well, you're very blessed, bro.
Well, thanks for having me, and appreciate you giving me the platform to put out what we're doing for Veterans Day.
Always, man. We'll push, and we'll get some more information from your team, and we'll make sure everything's up and up to par, and good luck, brother.
Love it. Thanks so much, man. Cheers.
Frogman.